Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. This is the 5th annual Robert Millikan seminar. As he's talking to Bob's sister, and we were trying to think back about who all the speakers were. We can't believe it's already 5 of these seminars, and each year through this seminar, we honor our good friend and colleague Bob Millikan and his contributions to cancer epidemiology. And for those of you who knew Bob, his contributions have gone well beyond just cancer epidemiology. That he was a spectacular teacher, mentor, intellectual tour de force in our department and beyond. And that's where people may not realize, beyond our department, he was so influential in establishing and working the breast cancer advocates with the UNC rowing team, and about hundreds, literally hundreds, thousands of other people that he influenced in so many ways. So it really is an honor to put the seminar together and honoring Bob's memory. And those of us who knew Bob, we honored him through this seminar and making sure that the Carolina breast cancer study, his baby, is still in good hands and progressing. So also in this seminar, we also, and I think this is something obviously Bob would appreciate, that we honor students, and the Millikan family has made a generous donation for us to award each year, provide a Robert Millikan Award to honor an outstanding student working in cancer epidemiology. And I actually would ask Bob's sister Ann to come up when we force a student to. Students always like taking this one. So the 2019 award goes to Chelsea Anderson. Chelsea is, for those of you who don't know, an outstanding student. That she has already, for a dissertation, a number of publications, and serving on our committee. It really demonstrates what an exceptional student she is in terms of her command of the material, her productivity, her efficiency. She had a paper, I think, sent to JNCI, and within the same hour got the rejection notification, and then a resubmission notification to another journal. So I've never seen anybody turn a paper around. So and her first dissertation paper was already accepted. So I'd like to ask Chelsea. Sorry, you have to do the long walk with everybody looking at you, but let's give Chelsea a round of applause. And we have an award we're going to do symposium here. So here, award. And this is always the thing with awards from the department. It looks real, but then it says Bank of Wishful Thinking. So it's a generous award from the Millikan family. We want to thank Ann and her family for this award. And here you go. Congratulations. So it's a pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Tim Rebbeck. And each year, again, in honor of Bob and the seminar, we look all over the country and beyond for the most outstanding cancer epidemiologists to come and give a talk and meet with students and meet with faculty. And we're really pleased to have Tim here today meeting with us and for his seminar. Just by way of background, Tim got his bachelor's in biology from Northwestern, master's in epidemiology from Hopkins, 2 degrees from Michigan, a master's in statistics, and a PhD in human genetics. After his PhD, he spent a fair number of years in Pennsylvania doing a postdoc at the Fox Chase Cancer Center, as well as being in the department as a faculty at University of Pennsylvania Department of Medicine. In 2015, he took the big move north to Harvard, and there he has several positions. He's a professor in the Division of Population Sciences at the Dana-Farber Cancer Center, but he's also the Vincent L. Gregory Jr. Professor of Cancer Prevention at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. He's also Associate Director for Equity and Engagement at the Dana-Farber Harvard Cancer Center, and he's also Director of a a brand new center, the Center for Global Cancer Prevention, also at Harvard. So Tim has numerous, I won't go through all your publication, numerous awards. We'll note the Joseph Fraumini Distinguished Achievement Award from the American Society of Preventive Oncology. For those of you who submit papers in cancer epidemiology and have complaints, those of you who want to submit to cancer epidemiology biomarkers and prevention. So you're not going to feel any complaints about me. So
I'm off duty now.
Off duty, but for many years he is editor-in-chief of one of the leading cancer epi journals in our discipline. And his interests, I think you'll certainly hear about a number of them today. He's interested in a variety of things: molecular epi studies, of cancer etiology and outcomes, health disparities, global health. He leads several consortia that are involved, one in the study of BRCA1 and 2 mutation carriers, and he's involved in a consortia of prostate cancer in men of African descent in North America, the Caribbean, and Africa. So again, let's welcome Tim, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm really glad to be here. I wanted to just start by emphasizing and elaborating a little bit on what Andy said about Bob, who I knew for many years. And this picture on the left is something you'll recognize. It's a North Carolina Tar Heels mug. And this mug, Bob and Sarah Nante and Jill Barnholt Sloan came to Philadelphia one year to talk about collaborations, and Bob brought me that mug from North Carolina, and it's still on my desk. But so in addition to the things that Andy said about him being brilliant and a leader and all that, he was also very kind and very thoughtful, somebody I liked a lot. And I have that mug on my desk to remember him. And it's my only North Carolina memorabilia piece, so it's unique in many ways. So I wanted to start this lecture just to talk a little bit about some philosophy of cancer prevention and early detection. I'm going to just go through some philosophy about what we've been thinking, what I've been thinking, through some discussions in setting up centers and projects and doing some of my own research, and then give you a couple of examples of what I think that might look like. You're all very well familiar with the concepts of cancer prevention and early detection. They're critical pieces of the armamentarium we have to lower the burden of cancer in the population. And these approaches work very well. They're very effective in many ways, but they're also approaches that need to be enhanced and amplified on in order to really realize their potential. So let me just start by showing you this complicated triangle slide that I have. The triangle slide that I have, can I do that? Yeah. Really represents the different ways in which we can think about prevention and early detection in populations. So, up at the top, because I can't really do that, up at the top, we have population strategies. These are things like imposing smoking bans and taxes, HPV vaccination, things that everyone in the population is eligible for, most everyone, should be a part of a governmental, societal initiatives in lowering the cancer burden in the population. Up here on top, population approaches. So those have been very successful. I'll give you a couple of examples about why there are limitations with those. But there are also approaches that complement those population approaches, the high-risk approaches. So those include exposure avoidance or chemoprevention or early detection strategies in individuals who may have enhanced risk. So for example, you can imagine using low-dose lung CT screening in heavy smokers, which we know is efficacious, but you wouldn't do in the entire population. You would only do this because the yield of the lung cancers in those populations is high enough that it becomes cost-effective. You can imagine doing mammography in childhood cancer survivors. Now, maybe mammography is something that most everybody should do, but in childhood cancer survivors, there's a specific need if they've had a particular treatment for their childhood cancer. So these two things complement one another, things that have to happen in the entire population and things that need to be targeted toward individuals with specific needs or risks. I think in the more recent past, we've begun to think about precision approaches And I would say this is a third adjunct to these two, not something that would supplant either of the two, the population or the high-risk approach, but something that's coming along that provides an opportunity for us to address cancer prevention and early detection in a different way than we might, in a more appropriate way than we might using these other two approaches that are more standard. And the difference here is that these precision approaches really rely on mechanism, really rely on the underlying understanding of biology or carcinogenesis, and that we would use that information to target perhaps rare groups of individuals or individuals who have very, very specific needs based on some biological characteristics they have. So for example, you can imagine, and I'll give you more examples of this in a bit, risk-reducing oophorectomy in BRCA1 and 2 mutation carriers, removing healthy ovarian tissue in women who carry these very high-risk mutations. So clearly that's not something you're going to do in all women, right? That's not a population approach. It's probably not even necessarily a high-risk approach, but it's certainly something that based on genetic information, biological information about risk, that we can understand the risk is sufficiently high that we can undertake this pretty draconian preventive strategy in some subsets of the population. So there's an example. So 3 layers, if you will, around which we can be thinking about the approaches for early detection and prevention in cancer in the population. And I just have at the bottom of the triangle the notion of precision medicine, mostly to say that precision medicine, the use of targeted therapies that focus around particular mutations or specific biological alterations, is really kind of a parallel to what we're talking about in precision medicine, precision prevention and early detection. These two sort of go hand in hand in the sense that we're really targeting specific biological phenomena in their implementation. So I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean about this, some of the reasons why I think this is, we can motivate these kinds of approaches, and it's all pretty early, so please ask questions, because I don't have all the answers, unfortunately, today. Limitations of current approaches. So again, I think we have, through the population and the high-risk approaches, some incredibly successful strategies that have lowered the cancer burden. But there are limitations, and so here's some of them. Success is invisible. The success in a preventive strategy is that you do something, you may do something quite intense, you may do something that's difficult, you wait 20 years and nothing happens, right? Nothing happens is a success story. So that's good, but it's also not a lot of drama. These statistical lives that you saved have very little emotional effect. And so it's difficult for people, including patients, policymakers, health systems, to rally around expensive or difficult interventions that lead to nothing, or the absence of something. And so this kind of, this leads us to problems when we try to convince people that if they do something or stop doing something or whatever, they're going to be better off in 20 years or something like that. In addition to that kind of lack of drama, that lack of an apparent event that we can point to down the line, these approaches may require a persistent behavioral change. They may require us to change our diets over decades. They may require us to take a pill over decades, something like that. And so this persistent behavior change means that people have to be compliant with whatever this thing is, perhaps over a large amount of time. It might just be that they have to come in and have a mammography, or they might have to have an HPV series of vaccinations when they're a child. These are not trivial things, even though they sound like they should be trivial. These kinds of persistent or repeated or perhaps difficult, expensive, inaccessible things make it very difficult to achieve complete success in prevention and early detection. We are also all guilty that we change the rules all the time. We say fat is bad for you, no way, carbs are bad for you, no way, and things change over time. And that's fine, because that's what we do. We improve the science, we improve our knowledge and our understanding of what's going on, but we still confuse things for people who are trying to achieve persistent behavior change, dietary change, whatever it might be, over long periods of time for an event that isn't going to happen. So you can see this makes prevention challenging. And the last thing, which is not trivial either, is that commercial interests may conflict with the prevention goals. So all we have to do is look at cigarette smoking and the Altria, Philip Morrises of the world to know that our ability to change prevented behaviors is up against the big money of industry, of some industries and things like that. And those are not trivial things for us to deal with. So again, this isn't the whole list of things that Feinberg mentioned in JAMA a few years ago. But it gives you, I think, the sense that prevention is hard. Early detection compliance is hard. And so what do we need to do to improve that? So we can impose taxes. We can ban cigarettes in places. We can, there are things we can do. This is great. And we do those things and they're somewhat successful. But the bottom line is that the risks and the costs and the benefits must align for the individual. And this is where the precision piece comes in. If you're an individual who knows that they're at increased risk of a cancer,